All right, welcome back to the Crave Show with Chris, JRuss, and we've got quite a few guests with us tonight. Man, I'm super excited about this. We've got Rook Nelson. Rook, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
Nice
Thanks
to
for having
see
me
you
back.
again.
Yeah,
We
good to see
got
you guys.
Raj. Raj, how are you?
Doing really good. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, good to see. And we've got a new guest, Matt Fry. Matt, how's it going, man?
Hey, pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're really glad you guys are joining us tonight. So, let me just real quick for the audience. Tonight's or this episode is going to be a little bit different than kind of what we've done in the past. Normally, the conversation. A lot of times we'll have a topic, something to talk about, but it's pretty organic as far as where it goes and kind of what we're talking about. Just kind of JRS and I discover it as we as we go, kind of. Um, but tonight we have a little bit more. It's not scripted by any means. It is organic. We're going to have a conversation, a discussion. But the topic is vertical world record, and specifically Raj here with us. He's got some questions that he's going to pose to Rook and Matt, and maybe Jay Russell answer some of them too. But um, I don't know, Raj. Let me do this before we get into it too much. I do want to do a couple of kind of Crave housekeeping things, just a couple of announcements. I'll try to go real quick. So the first is, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you heard me maybe 6 months ago talking about a Crave app, and that was something that we were working on. Had some people trying to develop that app. Basically, that app is defunct. We're not going to do it right now. The people that were working on it, for whatever reason, it just wasn't working out. They weren't doing a very good job. So we just said, let's stop. We're not going to do it. So if you were waiting on that, I just wanted people to know that's not going to happen, at least right now, maybe in the future. Another thing, if you've been listening, you've heard me mention a coaches and organizers directory. And we are working on that. My hope is hopefully within the next month, we're going to have the beta version of this coaching directory. It won't be live to the public, but I've got a handful of people that coaches and organizers that are going to help me kind of test it. So hoping to roll that out to the public sometime within the next 4 to 6 weeks, hopefully. This is really exciting, and I haven't even had a chance to share this with JRuss, but we have put together a Crave Show AI bot. So, with the help of a friend, Brian Piper, he actually was on the show one time sharing a video, but we took every single transcript, JRuss, from every episode. So, this is episode 59. I got every single transcript, and Brian loaded all of those into an AI bot. And you can go in. I've been having so much fun with this thing. You can ask it, "Hey, what should I consider? What safety things should I consider when I'm doing a movement jump?" And it will search all the transcripts that we have for all 59 episodes, and it will tell you the safety considerations, not that it thinks, but that have been highlighted throughout the show. Or you can say, "Hey, I'm struggling with head down. What should I work on?" And it'll give you a list of things. Dude, it's so awesome. But it's not coming up with the answers about what it thinks. It's actually using the information that we have provided from all these different experts that we've had on the show. It's so cool. So,
Excellent.
anyways, that's not available to the public yet either, but it will be soon. And I'm really excited for people to just get to play around with it and see what they can. Or you can just ask like, "Hey, when was Matt Fry on the show?" And it'll say, episode whatever this day. And so it's really cool. I think it'll be a lot of fun for people. So, all right, that's my Crave housekeeping
Cool.
stuff.
I would like to just start with, because Rook and Raj have both been on the show. Just Rook's the owner of Skydiving Chicago. Most people are probably familiar with him. Raj is Pacific Northwest jumper, organizes some records, been part of a lot of record attempts in the past. But Matt has not been on the show. So Matt, not to put you on the spot, but if you could just kind of give a quick bio of yourself or whatever you'd like people to know about you before we get started.
Sure. Yeah, I've been jumping maybe 18 years now. I've been participating on the world record circuit since 2012. Probably around 2018, I started organizing regional records, and then started organizing the sequential world records, and just getting pretty big in the big way circuit.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool. Well, without further ado, Raj, you want to get started?
Sure. Yeah. Before we get started, I do want to say it is an honor and it is extremely nerve wracking to be interviewing such folks because Rook is the reason I'm skydiving. I started at his facility almost 20 years ago. JRuss has been my mentor for so many years, and I've been participating in Matt's events. So I just want to say to all these organizers, don't cut me for anything I'm going to ask you today. Okay. On that side, Rook actually, here's a little thing that you should know about Rook. At Skydive Chicago, when I started, 2005, if you went through their AFP program, you had a graduation jump 25. And on graduation jump, you get to jump with Rook Nelson. Okay, that was the pitch. Like, you get to jump with a legend. You're like a newbie, you just got your A license, but you get to organize it. They teach you the basics of organizing. You select who you want to jump with, you decide the slots, and you basically put the jump together. So it was like intro to organizing. And I had this whole jump planned out with Rook in it, and he didn't show up. So for 20 years, I've been waiting for my graduation jump. And I thought I'll get it in 2018 at the world record. Then I thought I'll get it in 2022 at the world record. I was like, as soon as we got it, I was going to be like, Rook, thank you for graduating.
Yeah.
Saving it for you, Raj. Saving it.
Sounds like he's asking for a base slot.
But anyway, with that out of the way, so today's conversation is going to be about the vertical world record. How it's being organized, what's happened in the past, what's new for the future. But before we get started into that, I did write up about a few questions I have in my mind. So the first thing I want to say, I want to start off with is, I've been pretty active in the big wave vertical circuit. That's the one thing that I'm very fond of. It's my core competency in skydiving. And I wanted to ask the organizers here, what's your feeling of how vertical big waves are progressing? Is participation up? Is participation down? I'm not in all the events and I don't have all the insights, but from what I can see from past, years, 2018 Rook, you had this unlimited tryout, right? At Sebastian, you had an unlimited tryout. It was sold out. It was 110 people. I remember that. In 2022, again, you had limited slots, but they were all sold out. In 2025, I somehow feel, at least from what I can observe, the numbers are a bit down. What's your take? And I just want to throw this out there as maybe as a start of conversation.
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel that when we approached this attempt coming up in August, we had to do something different, and we couldn't do what we did in the past because it wasn't yielding the team that we needed to have to break the record. And having just an open door, anybody can come, wasn't yielding enough quality skydives to progress and to train and to get where we need to be. So I feel that in the past, with just anybody can come as long as you can safely fly on your head, that allowed anybody to come. You could be nobody from Iowa and you could come to a record tryout. And now with doing these phase camps, we're starting with a much smaller group. Phase one camps, some of them are 12 people. We don't need 120 because if you can't do a 40 way, why are we trying them? And it was a filter process because a lot of the people that we wanted on the records weren't coming to the tryouts because they knew they were a joke. And it was just a lot of younger jumpers that would come and we would try to weed through them and get the right group. But the people that we really wanted were like, I'm not spending that kind of money to be on these zoo jumps. So the new approach has, yes, it's changed the dynamic of how these tryouts are happening, but I don't know that we're struggling to get people. I mean, everyone that I've done has been well attended. We've gotten great results from it, and the team that we're assembling is really, really good. And there's a lot behind the scenes that I don't think people see on why we're doing the tryouts that we're doing. And of course, with something new, it takes a little bit of learning. That's why we tried to be very transparent by explaining the phase one cams, phase two, phase three, because it is different. And, you can put all of the information you could possibly gather in front of somebody, but we still find that people don't read it. And so you can only do so much, right? We can't make you drink the water. We can show you where it's at. We can pour it. We can shake it with ice. But if you want to get involved, look at the information, look at the data. Our events manager, Tracy's doing a fantastic job posting every single thing out there. And there are triple the amount of camps going on right now that there was in 2025. So now we have a larger supply, and the demand, is a little bit saturated because there's so much you can do. And it's not just a singular tryout where we get 120 people. There's phase one camps happening all the time with 10 people. And that's the goal.
Hold on, Raj, before you go there, Rook, you can answer this, or Matt, whoever wants to give me like a 30 to 45. I mean, try to keep it brief, but give me, what does the entire process look like of building the team? Like, walk me through the phase one, phase two, whatever it is, as if I know absolutely nothing about these vertical world records. How does it all come together? What are the steps, stages, process? But don't get in the weeds. You know what I'm saying? Matt, is that, you want to do that, or Rook, whoever?
Yeah, sure. In principle, the idea of phase one is for newer head down flyers, learning to fly in a group, fly in a big way. It's essentially band practice. Yeah. Phase two is now you know your job. We just need to fine tune the team. Okay. So now it's rehearsal for the big show. So at that point, um, you require less individual input from the organizer and you're more able to manage yourself, right? So now in phase two, into the more extreme phase three, we're trying to build more of the formation.
And just I think just to touch on the attendance thing, Steph's doing a Tennessee record. She's leaving in the morning. That's sold out. It's a phase two. I think it's 44. The weekend after, she's doing a North Carolina record. That's sold out. I think that's also 2 planes, but they actually have a wait list. They might add a third. And when we were in Dubai a couple weeks ago, the weather was predicted to be absolutely horrible, and we got 33 out of 40 slots for the weekend. So I agree with Rook. Like there are a lot more camps, and there's a lot more options that people have as far as going. But as far as the stuff that we're running, we're still seeing sold out camps.
Sure.
Yeah, Raj, let me ask you, in that same vein, how many vertical world records do you think occurred in 2024?
0. I mean, sorry, the head up record.
One? Final answer. Chris, you have a guess?
I don't know.
Was the sequential 2024?
7 world records.
7 vertical world records?
Vertical world records?
Yes.
Wow.
I don't know if there's ever been a year in which 7 vertical world records were set.
Oh, that's cool.
So really, like, it's really hard to argue against that and say vertical big ways are dying or diminished. We're setting more than ever before. And all of them have a healthy wait list. And in fact, when I think almost 2 years ago, Rook and I were meeting with JRuss and other organizers trying to decide, do we aim for 2025 or 2026? The biggest concern, or the biggest reason to consider 2026, was there are already too many big way events. Like it was already too saturated and we need fewer events. So I guess I just want to push back, and I think the discipline continues to grow and blossom.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's cool.
Let's go. Yeah, totally. So the next question I have is, just getting into the weeds of the road building up to 2025, the world record. Broad question. What we've all heard about the mechanics that you've changing, the ribs and spines, but now maybe it's time to lay that ground. What lessons have been learned from 2018, 2022, team selection, organizing, debriefs, formation, break-offs, everything put together, just at a high level. And we can get into the details on individual questions, but if you could all share whatever you think are the most critical lessons learned from the past 2 world record attempts.
Who goes
Matt?
first?
Want me to dive in?
Yeah, Matt, you can go first.
Yeah. It's a huge question. And it's not always accurate to call them lessons learned, right? Because sometimes there are decisions that are made based on the circumstances of the situation. So in many instances, we're trying to change the circumstances to afford us the luxury of making a different decision. So some things that have changed, as Rook mentioned, the phased camp approach. There's 3 times as many big way events to demonstrate and train. Um, we're focused more on like regional records and less on tryouts. So we want to foster this momentum of success, right? The best way to train for a record is set a record. We've tried to implement SOPs so that everybody shows up in one location already on the same page, doing it the same way. We've added more days to adjust for weather, but also to build in additional time to warm up and have this progressive build up to 200 ways rather than going into it cold. Different planes will have more tailgates this year. The formation architecture, as you mentioned, is completely changed. We'll be focusing on sector debriefs to hopefully expedite the debrief process. And we're sharing the event with a 250 way belly record attempt to help mitigate costs and logistics. There's probably a million other things that are changing this year, but those are some of the highlights.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna. You may find yourself repeating that in a bit more detail in the subsequent questions. But Rook, in your opinion, what's the takeaways from the past and for the future?
Yeah, the takeaway from the last record is what we've currently had success with no longer works. Uh, whether that be the selection process, the formation, the buildup, all of that stuff no longer works. And we have to come at it with a clean sheet of paper. And that starts with the organizers. You know, I partnered with Matt, who's been absolutely fantastic. He brought with him a brand new formation that not only is it a formation, but it is a proven formation that we're building 60 ways in 2 skydives. Like we're setting state records in 2 jumps. And that's awesome, right? Like I honestly feel like this type of change is like when we started to float half of the formation. And when we did that, that was a total audible call. We had never tried it before. Like we literally did it the first time at the world record. And I just feel that those types of plays, while used to work well, can no longer be done in that style. We have to test it, we have to prove it, we have to showcase it, and we're doing that. And so this formation, I can't tell you how excited I am about how awesome it is. You know, I got to do the Florida record, and to make a long story short, I was on the very outside of it. And I was the end of one of the ribs, which I've never been on the outside of a head down 1 point record, which was actually a lot of fun. But I got down and I remember talking to Matt in the video that we posted on the Vertical Elite Facebook page, like, Matt, the ribs are nice. They're easy. They're calm. They're not hectic. It's not building a pod on a bridge. So I can't wait. I can't wait to see the 100 way happen in California. And then we just carry that momentum into the base practice in June, and then we rally that come August. So to summarize, we've gotten a clean sheet of paper. The organizing team's different, the formation's different, different airplanes, different selection process. And the one thing we got a ton of feedback from the last record is they want to train more. And there's 3 times the amount of training opportunities that they have. So I want to show up to this record and not even think that, you know, if we're going to get it, but just which day, so I can get the media out here, because they keep asking me what day they should show up.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and I echo that, because in 2022, you had asked us all to fill out feedback, and my feedback was, I came to the Olympics without enough training.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you selected the Olympic team, but like it was do or die on that day. And so I think, yeah, totally, I agree that the training opportunities this time are. And I was part of the Arizona sector camp where we did 100 way, but there was only 1/3 of the formation that got to do 100 way. 2/3 didn't get to do 100 way. So I think with the base camp opportunities, I do see that. JRuss, your any inputs you may have?
I mean, I wrote a few things down that but I don't know what you're gonna. I read the question list a few weeks ago or whenever you posted it to us, but I didn't prep a lot. So things that I think are, and I got to qualify this, guys, that Matt and Rook are running the show, and I'm continuing to team train, and I don't, Steph and I don't have tons of time other than running camps. So I'm shooting a little bit in the dark because I'm not in the background meetings at this point. But like, I know that the build up for the base has changed, or all this is, I think it's happened. But if we're going to talk about it later, we don't necessarily need to do it now. The way we cut people, the way we have the bench, the ride or die list, running a base camp. So those are just some of the things that I think that Matt and Rook have addressed as far as like, these are some changes to the structure that we would like to make. And if they're part of the questions coming up later, fair enough.
Okay.
And if they're not, then we can maybe discuss them now.
Yeah. Okay. So, so now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of the questions that I have specific to the record. I'm not an OG because I don't have a VWR to my name yet, but I've been on the attempts. But I've spoken to many OGs who've been on past attempts, and some of them have said they're stepping back from the VWR circuit. Is that your opinion as well, or is it just the fact, like, sometimes we lose OGs, and is there, in your opinion, is there a minimum number of OGs we need to be successful at something this large? Doing a 40-way without OGs is one thing. Doing a 200-way without OGs is a different thing. So this may require more clarification, but I'm happy to do that.
I'll go first.
You're the OG of all OGs. So
great question. So there's always been drop off after every record, right? There's no doubt about that. I think it was like more than 50% on the last one. But, if you look at your skydiving career, some people could say skydiving's pointless because you could go your entire career and at the end of it, what do you have to show for it? You know what I mean? I spent all kinds of money. I almost got divorced. I got hooked on drugs and whatever else happened throughout your career. That's what you have to show for it. But if somebody could go through their skydiving career, they could train, they could see a record, want to be on the record, they could get the record, they could put a picture above their fireplace, and you said, you know what, for 10 years of my life, I became a skydiver, and that's what I have to show for it. I have this record that me and X amount of other people have, and we're the only people in the world that have to do that. Some people in their career of skydiving is like, how can I top this? I did it, right? Now I got to spend time with my family. I, found Jesus, whatever else you want to do, hats off to them, right? They stayed to their goal, they reached their goal. And are you just supposed to continue to beat your goal? I mean, that's what I do. So, but that's not everybody, and that's perfectly fine. So we have the process, and the phase camps are that, right? We get the people, they're brand new, they do their first camp, they excel, they're learning, we're building them up, we're building their skill sets. So here we are. Yes, we need some OGs, of course, right? Somebody's got to know how to build formations and where to put people and how to do design architecture. Yeah, that's what we're here for to do. But if we train the right people, it's just going to be like when the OGs started. They didn't start with big way experience, right? They found that goal, they trained for that goal, and they eventually built their skill set up. So, yes, some OGs aren't going to be on this record, and that's a bummer because you know what's going to suck? Sitting on the sidelines watching that video of a completed skydive. To me, that would drive me absolutely crazy. What if I would have just went? Man, I wish I would have gone. And the only things I regret in my skydiving career are the things I didn't do and I can no longer, I'm not able to do because maybe the opportunity doesn't exist or for whatever reason I can't do it. That drives me absolutely insane. I'd rather try, fail, and not have to think about that for the rest of my life because I know I can try again. So let's build up the new people. Let's get that photo for their fireplace so they can have the peak and they can get that accomplishment or get that goal.
Matt?
Yeah, what he said. Yeah, attenuation is pretty natural and organic, right? Like the last world record was 2015, 10 years ago. I can't tell you how many hobbies I've picked up and dropped in the last 10 years. So it's asking why some people don't want to prioritize the time or money for a world record. As Rook alluded to, there are countless reasons. But to your final question, yeah, of course, there's like a minimum level of experience we need, right? The new formation architecture makes about 100 slots much easier than they were in the past, but that still leaves 100 more challenging slots where the more experience we can put there, the better.
So a follow-up. Go ahead. Sorry, somebody had a question. No. Okay. Why do we as a free flying community bleed more OGs than belly? Like I go to belly events and I see 70-year-olds, right? They've been at event after event after event. Is it because we've made a pressure cooker atmosphere, or is it because we are too cool? Like, what's in, I don't know the answer to that. Like, I I'm getting old as we speak, 10 years on the circuit, but I don't see myself leaving the big way circuit. But why do we bleed, OGs, in your opinion?
Yeah, I'm not sure I would agree that we bleed OGs or
More
just.
than the belly.
I don't know if that's true. Even your premise. So I've asked Dan BC about this. The average age for his P3 participants is 49, and Doug Barron's events is 45. And BC said he attributes that difference into the fact that FS has been around much longer.
Yeah.
And he specifically says if we're lucky in 15 to 20 years, our average age range will be up there too.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Matt, that people haven't been free flying nearly as long. So they haven't had a chance to get old. Like give them a chance to get old and there'll be a bunch of old guys flying head down.
Yeah.
Yeah. But from event to event, you think we retain just as much as the belly guys do, in that opinion?
I honestly don't know.
Don't know. Okay.
There's definitely a core group of people, right? Like there's the big way people. When we do big ways, I see a lot of the faces that I only see when we do big ways and camps and records. And, there's always going to, I think, be that core group of people because that's how some people identify, right? They're the big way skydivers. And that's the same way with the belly skyd. And to be truthful, I feel the longevity in a belly skydiving is just it's longer. I mean, it's more physically demanding to do a head down skydive, and I don't think anybody can argue with that. It's not a cozy thing to be diving down at 200 plus miles an hour and then be on your head and then track away super fast. A belly jump is just it's a little bit easier, I guess.
Sure.
It's not to be rude, but it is.
Yeah. I mean, that could be it. I mean, it is physically and skillfully more demanding to do, free flight formations. Totally agree. Okay. So the next question I have is, what's changing to the process of the axe? Honestly, as a participant, it's opaque to me. You guys are organizers in a room. You guys go in, and then a neon green suit comes out with a board, and then we just run away from that neon green suit, right? So, but I'll give you an example. In 2018, not so much because I was on the bench and I got called off the bench. So once I got called off, there wasn't much axe after that because it was the last 4 attempts. But in 2022, I was part of all the attempts, and sometimes I saw guys who were like, that's the guy I look up to, and he's sitting on the bench. I'm like, oops, like what did he what can I do that he can't do? uh so what's going on in the process of axe, and what's changing, more importantly, what's changing rather, in terms of the axe?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start because I think Matt, you'll be able to kind of follow this up because my answer kind of leads to your philosophy about the bench. In previous, again, this starts back to like what we did to be successful in the past no longer works, right? Just generationally, we operate different, we are successful in different ways, and the culture is different. Uh, the pressure of the axe used to be awesome because people tried 110%. And now what we're seeing is that the pressure of the axe actually cripples people because they don't like if they mess up, you know what I mean? They're done. And their whole time and energy and money and effort is just gone, evaporated. That's a lot of pressure. And people start skydiving because it's fun and they want to do cool things. And if I want pressure, I'd go back to work and I'd have to hammer out spreadsheet reports before tax day. I don't want that. I want to be knowing that I'm in a supportive environment. And to be truthful, this was something that I had to learn. And Matt was an advocate for it. And when he started making posts about how awesome it was that he started and ended with the same group, and I just blew it off at first. But then when you see what it actually does to the group, you can't argue with data. You can't argue with fulfillment of what really happens at the show, and it works. And I feel bringing that supportive environment is going to yield a better environment than, hey, if you mess up, you're done. All the money, time, and energy you spent, sorry about it. There comes the yellow suit with the axe, and you're done.
Oh, is it yellow this time, JRuss?
Or lime green, whatever. I'm colorblind, so sorry.
Still green.
What we would see occasionally at record attempts is a flyer wouldn't necessarily be making a mistake, but they're just not in a slot they excel at, right? So maybe they're building a bridge and they're just not a very good bridge flyer. Any other slot they're great at, but where we place them is poor. So now do we cut them? And that was kind of the process in the past. Cut them, try somebody from the bench, give them a shot. And that was not necessarily yielding the results we want. So this year, the focus is more on coaching, mentoring, and reslotting. I'm not going to say there won't be cuts or a bench, but the emphasis really is on as many opportunities as possible. Because the one comment that guts me after an event is when somebody goes home and says, I never even had a shot. I was on for one jump and then off. And that just stinks. So the goal or underlying philosophy for this year is if we have to cut somebody, hopefully they can still go home and say, I was part of the team. I had a shot. It wasn't working, but I was there. I enjoyed the event. I was part of the event. If that makes sense.
It does. So you have in the past spoken about this progressive build-up, so I'm assuming that means you're building from the base outwards. You're getting that core team set up first, and then the outer slots. Not to say that the outer slots are easier, but the core team needs to perform at an incredible speed for the outer slots to have a time. So does that mean that the axe, or not axe, but your philosophy of picking that core team is stringent, more stringent than the philosophy of how you slot the outer rings? Does that make sense? That question?
Yeah, certainly we need to build from the inside out. So the core 40 will probably receive the most attention in their selection. And that's why we have the base camp for anybody interested in being there. That gives us extra information before the world record to start slotting them in different places and see where folks excel at, especially in that daisy chain design.
Sure.
Hey, real quick, Raj. So Matt, on that note, can you, because JRuss and I, we don't know this for a fact. We haven't looked at data and demographics, but we have a sense that most of our listeners are newer, younger jumpers. We think our audience is made up more of them. So it's very likely that a lot of people listening don't have a good grasp or handle or understanding of the shape of the formation, the size, the difficulty, like what you're doing, some of the things that you guys are mentioning about the base, the stingers, the ribs, the whatever, all those different things. Can you give us just kind of a 101 breakdown of all that? Do you mind?
Yes, it's easier to do visually. So effectively, the formation consists of 8 people building a round in the center, and then we are building a 40-way around them, building what's called the daisy chain, and then from there we'll have 8 what we're calling spines extending in a radial fashion from the core, and then we have multiple ribs. I'm sure you've seen pictures of some of the bellyways. We're pretty much stealing all their good ideas, and have these long whacker lines or ribs in this case extending from there.
Okay. And in the past, how did the formation look different in the past?
Rook, you want to go over that one?
Yeah. First, we started with a 10-way base that was terrible. And then we would build, pods off of that. And then between the 2 pods was a bridge that connected the pods. And then off of that was just more pods. And it was 4 layers deep, I think. And it's just a very difficult formation to do. There's a lot of things that need to happen. First, the 10-way base is really tricky to do. You can do it, but to do it well is hard. And then if everything isn't lined up, things start getting smashed, and done perfectly, it works. And we proved it. We can build it out that far. It's just we just never could do it all at the same time. So again, the new formation that Matt has come up with is just clutch, and I cannot wait to do it come August. I can't wait to do it in a couple weeks in California, but after that in August is going to be fun as well.
So Matt, what have you learned from the belly guys and just from trying this new formation? Why is it easier?
So while it wasn't explicitly described this way, what we found is this allows a little more flexibility for individual movement.
Okay.
So in the past, let's use a person's wingspan as an example. Raj's wingspan is very different than JRuss's, right? And that could be difficult to accommodate for in the old design, as opposed to the current design is more forgiving with different fall rates, different wingspans. It is more forgiving. Pretty much the tolerance for error is higher. And it seems to be very intuitive for a lot of flyers. One reason in particular, it allows more flyers to face the center of the formation, as opposed to the old design. You'd have to turn your body 90 degrees and look over your shoulder often, which proved more challenging than we would expect.
Okay, sorry. One more thing, Rook. And if this is going to get us way off track, you don't have to answer it. But to me, when you say an 8-way round versus a 10-way, in my mind, it's like, that's just two people. Come on, that can't be that different. How could it be that much more difficult? Whatever. Explain to me, why is it so different? Just adding two people.
Yeah. So, think about it in a belly sense. A 2-way is easy. 4-way is a little trickier. A 6-way, still manageable, but still a little harder. Just the more people you add, the more levels you get. And then now put, 180 people behind you, yanking and pulling and different fall rates. And, there was somebody that was in the base that dislocated their shoulder because there was so much force on that base. And I think a lot of people underestimate what it's like to be in the base, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm nervous, I'll just go in the base. It's not enjoyable. Like, you are I want to say stepchild, I want to try to keep it politically correct, but like, you're just you get abused because nobody really is thinking about the base. They're just hanging on at that point. And like Matt said, the new formation allows for a little bit more, not necessarily sloppiness, but it's more forgiving, and it hopefully won't be so brutal on the base. And the 8-way is just structurally better. It's smaller, it's tighter, it's stronger. We've proven that a handful of times with previous records.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's very interesting. I learned a lot of good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah. So building on that axe question is the question of pie crusting, right? I'll take my example. I was last diver in 2022. It was a good 15 jumps before I had something that was worthy of touching. And on the 16th attempt, I think we decided to downsize it to 171 from 200. I got restarted further in and all that. But if a decision had been made to pie crust, I would have been devastated. Like, I was in the slot 15 times, nothing I could do, naturally about it. So what's the philosophy around pie crust? I understand it as a last ditch option. Like in 2018, it was the last attempt ever possible, so you pie crusted it. It's better to send home 171 people happy than 200 people unhappy. I get that, right? But how do you justify pie crusting if I did my job every single time asked, but I just drew the short straw? I didn't draw it; somebody drew it for me. So how do you explain that?
You got to tell us what that is first.
Okay, so you have a large 200-way, and then it's not working, so they decide to downsize the record. So they cut the rim, the pie crust.
Okay.
So 20 people randomly lose their slots.
Got it.
So now it's a 180.
It was 34, I think.
Yeah. JRuss did that last time. And I promise you, Raj, there is nothing fun about doing that, right? That when we decided to make that call, it was this is it, right? We have this amount of time to do this in. What is the action that can try to yield the best result, right? And that was it. It's just like an onside kick in football. Like, this is your only option that you have, even though like the likelihood of it working is 50-50. And it sucks doing that. Like, it sucks cutting anybody. So I feel the new approach is going to minimize that. However, oh, did we lose you? Okay. I feel that it's going to be slightly different. And one thing I want to note about the new formation, and I'm not sure that Matt maybe can elaborate more on it, but with Raj's point of you're the last diver out and you get there and there's nothing to touch, nothing to touch, nothing to touch. Now you're spending a lot of money on every skydive to watch it. With the new rib design, essentially you could be on the outside building your rib, as soon as we allow those to be built. So as opposed to just watching it, you guys could be practicing the rib, and then when it's ready, fly it in. And most skydives, you'll have something to touch. So it won't be necessarily just being out there staring at the formation, waiting for your slot to dock. Your slot should probably be there pretty quick, as long as the engineering is working out and we're working through those hurdles. But pie crusting for us is going to first happen on something very safety related. We want to protect the number as much as possible. We're not sold on having to do exactly 200. Would that be cool? Absolutely. We're just wanting to break the record. So whatever that number is, awesome. And if it's 165, that would be a bummer. However, it's a record. So the cuts are going to be for safety. And then obviously in that Hail Mary moment, if we have to kind of crust off the sides, that is an option and a play that we're going to do. Just as you mentioned, it's better to send some people home with a record than to send nobody home. And it goes back to my statement, I'd rather try and fail than not try at all.
Raj, are you still there? We may have lost him completely. Okay, well, so
the show must
JRuss, if
go
you
on,
have
right?
questions or things that you want to bring up, please go ahead. I have a question, but JRuss, you.
Well, I'm just taking a second to get back to the chat that Raj sent. So maybe I can.
Okay, well, what?
So I guess speaking as the axe person, I got to reiterate what Rook said, that cutting people sucks. And I'm pretty happy that this record may be much less of that. Hopefully none at all, since I think it's based on safety violations only, or if it's just absolutely not working with somebody. But I think related to what Rook said about people spending all this time and money coming to the record, and then, I did one jump and I got lost, and I sat down, and my 15 grand and the last year of my life is kind of gone. I don't think that's going to be the case for anybody this time. You're going to have multiple chances to do your job. You're going to get moved if you're struggling in the spot, and only then are you going to potentially be asked to sit down. But there's going to be lots of chances for you. So yeah, hopefully that'll be a better system for everybody. So the next thing that Raj had listed on his list of questions was the financial aspects of organizing large events. And I don't know exactly what the thrust was of this, but I think that when I spoke to him on a call, it seemed like, I think he was saying that some of the OGs that he talked to said that there's like one organizer for every 11 people or something like that, and all the costs of all those organizers have to go into everybody's registration, and so does that pump up the cost to each individual flyer? And if it does, is there a way
Can you
to
guys hear
cut
me
that
now?
down? I was moving on to the
Yeah.
financial
So
aspects of
I'll ask that.
organizing
Yeah.
large events.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I did get your answer, Rook. So thank you. I guess I could hear you, but you couldn't hear me for some reason. But
Okay.
the next question is tricky and it is sensitive, and I want to phrase this appropriately. So I'm going to take a minute to set the context. Rook is unique in this audience because he plays two personas at the record. There's Rook the DZO, and there's Rook the organizer, right? I'm gonna say the context here. So 2018, 2017, I was new on the circuit. So I spent a good 25, 30,000 going to every tryout. I went to tryouts in Europe. I went to a rinky dinky tryout landing into somebody's backyard in Georgia, right? So I did everything possible to get on the circuit. And then in 2021, 22, I spent another 15, 20K going to mostly North American tryouts. At the end of it, I don't have anything to show for that 40K. But the question is, I think, so I want to phrase this appropriately because there's a lot of things that could be misconstrued here. People often dismiss that, oh, the organizers don't feel the consequences that the participants do financially, right? We spend 40K, 40K down the drain. As a DZO, I get it. You run a business. You substitute Rook with any DZO, Arizona, Paris. The DZO is still the DZO. You know, you supply the planes, you supply the equipment, and then the event happens. But as organizers, what's being done to understand the financial investments that go into, building the talent, participating in this, and how are organizers also feeling that pain that participants do? I'm not saying you have to. I'm just asking, do you? And how does that translate in the future in the new model?
I feel this question is for me. um, I don't understand exactly the organizer side of it. I think the question is two part. Like, why do they cost so much money? And I can tell you in your scenario, Raj, like the picture that you hang up on your fireplace will be a $70,000 photo. And man, it's going to feel good to have that photo up there because you got something to show for it, right? And maybe after that record, you're going to be like, you know what, I'm good. And I'll be like, man, that OG Raj, he's no longer wants to do records with us anymore. He got him that photo and he doesn't want to do it. I have to train somebody else to come along. And then you'll have your graduation jump. But here's the deal. And I think the question really is like, do I do these records for money? And the answer is no. I have never paid myself personally from the very first record I did in 1998 to the ones that we did recently. In fact, and to be ultra transparent, it came up in conversation about like, what is the compensation? And I'm like, I don't want any money. Any money that we were going to put towards me, put it back into the event. Now, the flip side to that story is I own an airplane company and I can't do these for free. So, yes, I charge people to use the airplanes to do these world records. And I promise you, if I don't lose money, to me, that's a win because there is a lot of times that I've done these records and I have completely lost my ass. In fact, there was one of the records, not this past one, but the one before. And as you know, we chopped everybody off and we went from 200 to 171 and we kept all the airplanes, meaning I had to come up with like 30 slots of revenue. And that wasn't a line item on the budget, right? And who pays for that? I did. I sat up on the stage and I asked everybody if they would contribute a jump ticket. People did, and I don't want to discredit their efforts, but not a lot of people did. So, I mean, maybe I recovered 10 of those. So I had to come up with 20 slots. There was no line items for that. And just to put in perspective, when we take off with 9 airplanes and go to 19,000 feet and pray we don't have to do a go around, the cost of that is just shy of about $9,000 to do that. So if we have go arounds, if we have anything that goes wrong, there's no line item in the budget that protects me as the airplane owner for those financial costs. And I'm just doing it because I want to succeed and I want to prove to people that when people say you can't do something, smile and nod and then go do it. And it's just a crazy thing that I love doing. And over the course of time, I've figured out a way to try to lose less money. And yes, that's why the jumps are 60 plus dollars. But if you look at it prospectively from what the other people charge for their events, it's actually not that bad. And we've even gone to the far as like the craziest idea is, hey, let's do 200 ways at the same time. So now we can diversify the cost of 450 people, close to 470 people when you think of everybody going to be involved. That's going to significantly reduce the overhead. It's going to create a burden to my staff that you will have no idea what it's going to be like to try to go through that. And honestly, once the records start, it's going to be easy because Group A goes, Group B goes. What's going to be the challenging part are the practice days because there's going to be like 10, 40 ways that want to go. And to try to logistically go through all of that is going to be a nightmare. In fact, once we finish the practice days and we get through it and hopefully do it well, I feel like that's going to be a merit badge that I'm going to talk about in my Hall of Fame induction because it's a logistical nightmare. And not to mention the army of people that we have to have on staff to help run oxygen bottles, to pick people up, to feed people, to register people. There is so many moving parts that go into these records. And I think you and I had a conversation about, you've organized a record, so you got to see the inside of it. And man, it's a losing game. If you went to any financial guy and said, "Hey, I want to get into business and do big ways," they're going to laugh at you because they're going to be like, "There's so much risk involved that this is silly. Might as well go buy a lottery ticket. You might make more money." And to summarize this, personally, I don't make a dime off of these. I do it because I want to do it. And I want to show, honestly, I want to win in front of my son because I want him to never give up. I always tell him, you got to finish what you start. And for me, not to try to get another record would be quitting before I'm done. And, I guess I'm thinking I'm going to say the same things again. So I'll leave it at that.
Matt, you got anything to add there?
No, I think Rook summed it up nicely. When I organize various records, frequently I'll reach out to different drop zones to get a bid and see how much would it cost to host this record there. And I've done it at the full range of drop zones where I'm the one taking out the trash at the end of the day, pilots who have never done formation loads before, all the way up to SDC and Paris and drop zones that I think set the gold standard. And it's looking at the pricing for the 200 way. I don't know where we would go to do it cheaper or better.
Raj, the thing that I wanted to add is that I've heard comments, and I added this. I don't know if it was one of your concerns about like the number of organizers at the record relative to the number of
subsidizing organizers.
Right. And all of us, as far as I know, all of us that are going to help to build this record, like Steph and I have run a bunch of camps. We make money on the camps as organizers of those camps. When the actual record happens, we're not getting a day rate. There's costs. Rook has in the past not charged us for our slot, but otherwise we're helping because we ran camps and made money in the past on the build up to this event. And of course we want to be a part of it, but your jump tickets are not subsidizing my day rate or any of the other organizers. We're there because we want to be part of the project.
JRuss, can you or Matt, either one of you guys, on the note of what you said about the camps, like the phase 1, phase 2 camps, because that's something if I'm just being honest, that's something I've thought about, and I've heard other people say, I attended one phase 1 camp. I really enjoyed it, but I did. How could I not at least just think about like, oh, okay, I'm looking around and I think there's like 12 or 14 of us, however many there were. It's like, oh, we all paid. I don't remember. I honestly don't remember. I think it was $250 or $350, whatever it was. So I just quickly did the math in my head. I was like, oh, this person's getting a pretty good chunk of change for this camp. Now, on the same note, everything that Rook just said is really helpful for us to hear about from his perspective. Why it cost? Why? So can you? I want to hear the other perspective. I want to hear the organizer's perspective about those camps and what they're charging, what they're getting, and the financial, what do you call it? Whatever. Anyway, do you understand what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah. So there's a lot of factors there. If you don't mind, JRuss, I'll jump in. And I empathize. Like I distinctly recall being a participant and wondering, like, what the heck am I paying for? There must be 100 of us here. How much money are you raking in? But as soon as you are in the back room, man, it goes fast. whether you are paying for O2. Frequently, that deposit at many events includes 2 or 3 slots. Some events, to help motivate people to fly in the base, will comp base slots. Sometimes you're ferrying in a plane. 2022, does anybody else remember the cannula shortage and how we were paying like $5 to $10 per cannula? These kind of expenses pop up, and then there's travel, pack jobs, video flyers. It adds up quite quickly. So I don't know. I can't think of anybody who, oh, I need some money. Let's have a big way camp.
Let's get rich off big way.
Yeah. And then let's look at some drop zones. You pay for the whole plane, whether it's full or not. So you now have to extend that cost to the participants, right? And that's why we might bend over backwards to try and fill the plane. And so sometimes we'll see records jump in increments of a full plane to try and keep it as cost effective for participants. So JRuss, am I missing any glaring expenses?
I mean, you mentioned it, but it kind of just glossed over the ferry fee, which Rook doesn't have 9 otters or 2 Sherpas, and like those companies are running a for-profit business, and they're going to make a profit off of Rook, and those ferry fees would pop your eyes out, depending on where the airplane comes from. So that's one thing that I just don't think that a lot of people take into consideration is 9 aircraft, and I think Rook's got 8 in his fleet, and one of them's a Cessna. It's not going to work really well for this. And then the other thing, that I think people need to keep in mind is if the organizers at your event make money, I think that they should. I think that they're bringing a knowledge base to the event. And as a, for instance, like Steph's leaving in the morning for Tennessee. She's been working on that record for a month, maybe 6 weeks of dealing with customers, refunding people's money, the logistics of taking their reservation and dealing with their bullshit when they can't come to the record now. I ended up drawing up an extra set of formations just before this cast in case there's weather and they can't go high and they got to split it into 2 groups. And I mean, the background work on something like this is exceptionally big. And this is, I mean, since we tried really hard to not interfere with the head up record when it was happening about a year and a half ago. But man, once that got done, every bit of like Rook and Matt's time, I mean, Rook does a lot of stuff, and I'm sure Matt does too, but there's been a lot of time in the background. And if Matt ends up making $5,000 for the last year and a half of work, was he properly compensated? So yes, you can look at the event and say, well, yeah, there were 200 people and everybody paid I don't know what it is, $100 registration or whatever. I really don't know. Yeah. But that money evaporates really quickly.
Well, and let me say thank you for answering that question and for helping us understand. Not that you guys need to justify yourselves or justify anything, but it really is helpful to understand your perspective, the other side, and that's I think what it takes. Sometimes, like, I don't know how to even consider the other side because I've never been there. I've never organized a big way. I've never, whatever, all the stuff involved. So all I can do is just kind of sit here and be critical, or I can ask and say, okay, hey, what's going on? What's the deal? And then try to listen and try to understand. So,
but Chris, I would really almost guarantee, or Raj, whoever asked this question to Raj, they don't organize events. Those questions aren't coming from people who do this as work, because they know how much work it is and how whatever money you make is a pittance compared to the amount of effort that you put into this event.
Yeah. Along your lines of the airplane shuffling too, like throughout the buildup of these records, I'm loaning airplanes to people and I don't charge them because I'm like, hey, I'm going to do a record in a few years and I'm going to have you return me the favor and send me a plane. So the record that Steph's going to tomorrow, I have an airplane going down there leaving tomorrow morning. And I'm not charging Hans a dime for that airplane to go there. Why? Because I'm using his airplane to come for the record in August. And there's so many of those favors that happen that, again, it goes back to the financial thing. That ferry alone, I could probably charge almost 10 grand for. And I'm just doing it for free because on the reciprocal side, I get to use it. So there's like the buildup is, I mean, if you wrote down everything that we have to do to make one of those happen, it's insurmountable. And if we get paid $2 an hour for the effort that we put in, I mean, that's probably saying a lot, like a lot. It's literally 2 years of work to get one of these things to go.
Yeah.
I think it's, and I appreciate the honesty. I think it's an important question to be asked, because what happens is when people don't ask the question, they assume,
Yeah.
and they assume the worst case scenario because they didn't get the results they wanted, right? Like, I spent 40K. What do I have to show? Oh, where did that 40K go? It went to one of these guys, right? So, but I think it's important to ask. I think you clarified some things that I've never thought of, like cost of a go around, right? I mean, those. I organize Rinky Dinky records, but they're at cost, and I still get people telling me, "What are you making on this?" But it is what it is, right? So.
Attaboy, that's what you make. Attaboy.
Yeah, even with the VWR, there are a lot of expenses I've never had to deal with before. So we're bringing in CASAs, which I believe need 2 pilots each. We have to house them, feed them, transport them, right? So bringing in this many planes, there's even peripheral expenses just to manage those personnel, right? And that adds up as well.
There's judges. They need to be transported. They need to be housed. They need to be fed. On Thursdays, they're going to pump out our poop because there's so many people at the drop zone. That's an extra, and I'm only saying that part, number one, because we're all going to smell it, but number two, because the costs they just go on and on and on. And I have worked at some events that got massive amounts of background funding from a very generous donor who wanted to help with the event. And in those cases, I did get a day rate, but it still didn't come from the participants. I would never have gotten that if it was from the participants, because then the cost is exorbitant and people don't want to do it. And then Raj, I hope that I can use you as an example that can be then sort of extrapolated to everybody else. But man, if you started this journey because you really wanted that 40 grand, you're doing the wrong thing. Like, none of us are in skydiving thinking we're going to get rich on skydiving. We're here, I hope, because people feel like our lives are more importantly about experiences than they are about the number of ones and zeros in your bank account. And so if people are really frustrated about the cost, then I'm not sure about the sort of the background mindset of getting involved in what we're all trying to do.
For sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we are at an hour, so I just have a couple more questions. But this is, I think, an important one. This happened to me actually in 2018. Very seasoned skydiver. He was on the attempts in 2018, but he was on the bench, and he was like, "I'm just going to let them sort it all out. The first 6 attempts, they're figuring out the planes, they're figuring out the base timing. I'll get in after, whenever they call me, and then, by the time they would have figured out all those basic logistics of the formation." And having been throughout the 2022, there is some validity to that. I mean, not just a world record, but any record you go to, the first few attempts of figuring out the timing. Is there something different being planned in 2025 I mean, one of them is the progressive buildup you've mentioned, Matt. But could you give a lay of the land of what's being done to be ready to go when the team is dead? Like, people aren't just waiting for timing, and some of it is probably unavoidable, but what is being done to minimize that?
Yeah, as you mentioned, some of that learning curve is unavoidable, right? I mean, 9 aircraft flying in formation, there's going to be some kinks to figure out, right? One of the advantages is by pairing with the FS team, we now have all those pilots getting double the practice flying formation loads. So I would hope to see them flying tighter and more comfortable sooner than we might have in the past. Also, I think Rook has previously mentioned we have like a gold star team coming out for the pilots to help expedite that. beyond that, some of the timing between planes, we haven't done the plane splits yet, but I think we're going to try and look at um, simpler timing just to keep it without going into too much detail. But having additional tailgates affords us a lot more wiggle room in that timing. So that learning curve, especially for the core 40, I think we should get through it much quicker than we have in the past.
Yeah.
Are the for the belly record and the vertical record, it sounded like you said the plane formation, I'm assuming altitude and basic exit strategy is very similar, or no?
Yeah,
No, I
they
think
have.
the exit. Go ahead, Rook.
Yeah, they obviously have more airplanes, but the for us, quadruple right trail is maybe not as important as right trail, meaning the fourth airplane back isn't as critical as the first airplane back. If we can get everybody super tight in that first 40 people, we can build in 20 seconds, sub 20 seconds. And the exciting part is, historically we have a Skyvan in front and it's flanked by 5 otters or 4 otters on each side, and then we have a Skyvan in the middle. So what we're doing this year is we have a Skyvan up front and it's flanked by 2 Casas. So in essence, we're going to bring almost 80 people out of the first 3 airplanes, which are tailgates. And we can all jump out of tailgates much faster and cleaner than we can out of a side door. So almost half of the formation is coming out of the first 3 airplanes, which should be in the tightest formation possible. And as Matt mentioned, like I reached out again. These are those little things that I don't think people recognize. Is that formation pilots for big ways are a dying breed. People that are in the jump piloting world, they graduate, they get their turbine time, and then they go to the airlines. And I was talking to Sean Hill, and he's like, "Man, the biggest struggle about doing these things is that we'd have less and less qualified formation guys."
Hmm.
And so I've reached out to all of my alumni pilots that ever flew for me that were awesome. And I was like, "Hey, man, can you come back and do this?" I sell it a little bit more than that. I'm like, "Hey, do you want to come back and do 9 plane formation loads? Right? You tired of pushing buttons in your jet and want to fly, pour coffee, talk to Karen in the back?" And of
Like
course they
actually
want
fly
to,
a plane?
But I mean, just like we're doing with the team of the record, I first round draft picked at all these guys. And like I don't leave anything to chance because gosh, I think my reputation's on the line even more for this one. And I feel the most confident leading up to it for sure. But it's those little things that kind of matter.
Okay, I got to ask this too. Just because you mentioned Skyvan and Casa, is one better than the other for this type of thing? Are they both good? I mean, what's the difference?
Yeah, I mean the Casa you can put more people in,
Okay.
but the reason we're having the Skyvan in front is Dave is going to lead the formation. He knows the area, he knows the flight plan, he can fly efficient because fatigue in the airplanes is a thing. The less time we can spend in the airplanes, a it's cheaper, and b it's just way less fatiguing. When you think about 40 minutes in the airplane times 4 loads a day, I mean there's hours in the airplane that it's just tiring. You
Yeah.
lack oxygen, it's uncomfortable, it's hot. And so, trying to manage people's energy levels is something to consider as well.
Yeah, and that all that time in the plane, the mental frame. I mean, you're in a very focused, like you're spending a lot of energy just thinking, right? Like because you got to be on in that time. I would think, I've never been on a record, but it would seem to me that that's a very taxing time mentally. And if you're doing that multiple times a day for extended periods of time, that is tiring. I
It
mean, for
also
the
takes a
skydivers.
physical.
Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
It also takes a physical toll
Mm.
because this is Chicago in August. So we're standing in the sun for 30 plus minutes, sweating
Mm.
our butt off, geared up. Then we get in the plane, close the door, still sweating, and then we start climbing up to 19,000 feet, and now we're cold because we're wet. And that hot cold dichotomy several
Yeah,
times a day for a week really takes a toll after a while.
yeah, yeah.
And just a little bit more on Raj's question about what's being done to prepare for making the attempts ready when everybody's there. That was kind of the thrust of your question.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, Chris and I talked about something that can basically be summed up as your battle plans will not survive contact with the enemy. and it doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters what we're doing, and it matters the plans that Rook and Matt are making. But at every camp that Steph and I run, there's a time where I tell people, like, I'm actually hoping that something about the plane formation or the timing is messed up, because it's going to be messed up possibly at the record. And if your mindset is that there can't be a single mistake or we're just not going to succeed, that's not the mindset you need to bring. And I don't know if it was in when we do the last one, 2022 or 2018, but there was one of Rook's pilots who's super experienced, great guy, great formation pilot. And no matter what Rook said, he wouldn't pull his plane forward into slot. And it was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 jumps. And finally they brought him into the auditorium and all the pilots, and that's you way back. And he was like, oh God, geez, look how far back I am. And so even a super experienced pilot just wasn't getting it right until sort of the right carrot was hung in front of him, so to speak. So if people shouldn't show up with the expectation that we're going to have perfection on jump one. Everybody's going to do their best in the background, but that's somewhat unrealistic.
No, I know. I was in his plane.
If they promise that they're going to be perfect every single time, I promise that our side will be perfect every single time. I'll make that deal with them right now.
So Raj, like you said, we're a little over an hour right now. So why don't you pick one more question that you want to ask,
Sure.
and then I've got a question. Then I've got a question for the guys, and then we'll kind of wrap up.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll pick one of 2 questions that I have. I think this is an important one. The team is very US centric, and possibly because the skydiving population is lopsided towards US. But I remember in 2018, Rook, the Aussie sector built 12 out of 12 times, right? JRuss went to Australia, he handpicked those people, and that sector built 12 out of 12 times. The 12 attempts we got, they built every single time. I see growing talent outside of US. For example, South America. The Brazilians are killing it. What's being done to source that kind of talent? As you know, it goes back to the old question. We're going to bleed some OGs, but there's global talent that can replace that. Is there a plan to be more global in nature in sourcing some of this talent that we have out there?
Yeah, I mean, there's camps being held in Brazil. There's camps being held in Australia. There's camps being held in Europe, all over Europe. I think there was one. There's one in Klatovy coming up. I forgot where the one that just one in Praia Brava that just happened. I know they were faced with a little bit of weather, but man, they're happening all over the globe, and we have our regional captains out there, presenting the people. Different from the past is that we used to give everybody an allocation of invites, meaning like, hey, Euros, you got 30 invites. Australia, you got 20 invites. Canada, you got 10. And then we would sector out the United States. We've gotten rid of all that because I feel that maybe invites are getting given just to use the allocation and not picking the best team. So now people they do the camp. We have this whole process in the background of spreadsheets where they rate the people, and then they give the rating, and then we and Matt looks at video and we evaluate people, and we're the ones that are actually allocating the invites. It's not coming from other people. So people are in essence farming them, they present them, and then we select them or not select them based on their performance and video and our judgment.
Okay.
And I think, Raj, if you think about what the comment that you made about me going to Australia, I actually didn't handpick those guys. Scotty, Hisco, they wanted their own camp in the old system that happened. But from Rook's perspective, how do you make sure that the quality that he wants to uphold is being upheld in another place? And so at that time, his decision was okay, JRuss will go down there and watch what they're doing. And so that's how that happened. And so with respect to making it more international, I think at this stage, Rook and Matt are saying, if you want to run a camp, that's great. Run a camp, and we're going to put it on the website, and you're going to have people show up, and you're going to tell us what you think as far as suggestions for people who are going to get invite, and you're going to justify it to us with videos, and then we're going to decide if we agree with your decision. But having said all that, Raj, I haven't invited a single person to the camp. I have made my suggestions to Rook and Matt, and they decide who's going to be on the record. So that process can literally be happening anywhere in the world. There's no limitation there.
And Rook and I had a conversation at the beginning of, does it make sense to fly somebody around the world to run camps, to build consistency and to help make those selections? And I mean, one, financially, it's non-tenable, right, to buy an international plane ticket for every camp. And then two, I don't know anybody who wants to run a big way camp every weekend of 2025. So yeah, we're doing the best we can, reaching out to local
for that $2 an hour.
That $2 an hour. Yeah, we're doing the best we can to engage international free flyers and organizers the best we can. I have not heard. I don't think I've had any aspiring participant reach out to say there's no camps anywhere for me to go to. Which I think is pretty good, because that was feedback you might hear in the past when there's only 10 to 12 around the world. But that said, I think we're open to suggestions. So if there's a corner that's being missed and there's somebody out there aspiring to be the next leader, reach out.
Cool. Thank you. Chris, over to you.
Do what?
No, over to you. That was the last question from my side.
JRuss, I do have one more question, but do you have anything that you want to bring up?
No, feeling pretty good.
Okay, cool. So my question is just this: is there anything that you guys haven't had the opportunity to share or talk about, or is there anything that you just really wish everybody knew about organizing and putting together a big way? I mean, you guys have had a chance to cover some things and share some stuff, but what does everybody not know that you really wish they knew?
There's autistic kids in the world that can communicate telepathically.
This guy. Okay, thank you, JRuss.
It's a whole podcast. Look it up.
What's it called, JRuss? You got to say the name of it.
Yeah.
It's called the telepathy tapes. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah, it actually looks super interesting. I got to check it out. Sorry. Okay, Matt, do you have something? I just want to make sure that you guys have an opportunity, like open mic. Like, what do you want to share that you haven't got a chance to say, that you feel like people don't understand and you wish they did?
Man, we're all on the same team. The organizers are just as invested mentally, emotionally, and physically in the success of these events. And we do it because we love it. So yeah, we're in the trenches with you.
My first thought was exactly the same thing that he just said. The passion that brings you to these events is why we're here. And if you had a mistaken notion about the riches and gold that we're hiding away via these big way camps, that's wrong. I'm there because this is a passionate part of my life.
Yeah.
Same as you.
Records are just fun. If you don't, again, I go back to your career skydiving, and if you don't get on a competitive team and you make your way through and you get no achievements, like, what did you do it for? I guess it's kind of fun. It's kind of selfish, but man, when you unite and you build a record and you achieve something, man, it's a cool feeling. And we're going to earn this one, right? It's been 10 years, 2 attempts, lots of money. Raj has spent 70 grand. Still haven't given him his graduation jump. But I can't wait. I can't wait to put all these pieces together. I know bringing Matt into the inner circle is probably one of the best moves that we ever made. He came with a new formation. It's a completely white sheet of paper. It's being tested from a 10-way all the way up to 100 to 200. And I sympathize for the people that are going to sit this one out, and we post the video or the picture of a world record, and what they think at that moment is just probably devastating, right? Because they could have been involved with it and they chose not to be for whatever reason. And I go back to the only things I've ever regretted in skydiving were the things I didn't do, and I don't have the opportunity to do them again.
Yeah. Well, I can honestly say that just having this conversation with you guys, listening to you, Matt and Rook, listening to you guys talk about it. It actually makes me want to be involved in it. Like I said, I'd gone to a phase 1 camp and I really enjoyed it, but then I was like, man, I just don't know if I can make the financial investment and the time. It's just a lot. I've got a family. I've got a job, I got to take care of all my stuff. But hearing you guys talk about it and hearing, honestly, really one of the things, the most moving things is hearing you talk about the way that you guys are looking at not cutting people, like that mental shift. It seems like there's a little bit of a shift. Is that fair? That a team, like we want to make a team that we can all work together, and as much as we can help this team be successful. That when I hear you talking about that's like, okay, I kind of want to be a part of that. That sounds super cool. That I would be like, I would spend some money to do that.
Trust
I
me,
think that's
I
very
spend a lot of
awesome.
money trying to be cool.
Because
We'll
there's
get to that
something
point, though,
very
Raj.
appealing about, and to me, like at that point, yeah, setting a record sounds awesome, but being a part of a group of high performing people that are really trying to all help each other be successful and do something hard and significant and cool, like, dude, that sounds worth investing myself in, so I think that's very neat. I like that a lot.
For sure.
Cool.
Chris, thank you for giving us the opportunity, giving me the opportunity to ask these questions. And Rook, Matt, and JRuss, thank you for being patient. You don't have to answer these questions. People can think what they want to think, but I do thank you for taking the time to listen to these questions. It's better to have them answered than let people make assumptions, because assumption is the mother of all screw ups. So thank you.
Yeah, and Raj, thanks for putting this together and making it happen. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you, Raj. I'll cut you that check that I told you I was going to write when we're done here.
Yeah.
Just don't give it as a neon green suit. That's all.
It's just remember, Raj,
No.
it's the journey. Remember, it's not the destination, but the
I
journey.
drank that Kool-Aid back in 2015. No, I drank the Kool-Aid in 2005 when I graduated.
What are you? You shut your mouth. You're still drinking the Kool-Aid. You didn't ever stop. And I can tell you, nobody's happier than the guy in the green suit that there's no more cuts. And Raj, I really appreciate your Lego toys in the background. That's
Oh yeah.
just
Well,
heartwarming.
this is my plight. I have to share the room. My office room is with my kids, so all my office colleagues get to see the Lego set.
Yeah. Well, all right. You've done it again. You've wasted another perfectly good hour listening to the Crave Show with Chris and JRuss. We've got a lot of great guys with us tonight. Rook, thank you. Matt, thank you. Raj, thank you guys very much. Listen, if you're listening to the show, thank you so much for listening, for being a part of what we're doing. Get out there and, dude, get in an airplane and jump out with your friends. Have fun, right? Who said that? Somebody said that, Matt or Jairus. So that's the reason we got into skydiving, because it's so fun, right? Like, dude, put the ego down, put the attitude away. We don't need sky guides. We need to just have a lot of fun in the sky, right? It's so fun. We get to jump out of an airplane. I love it. All right, Crave, do more, be better. Thanks, you guys. See you later.
See everybody.
Bye.